Oh, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to Snow The Goalie, the Only Flyers podcast, the People's Podcast, the Players Podcast, Prognosticators Podcast, Pedialyte Podcast, the Only Flyers podcast. I'm Russ Joy. That's Anthony SanFilippo. Bundy, once again on assignment. He will be back next week. Everybody get excited. Get your Bundy fix next week.
So we should let people know he's being honored tonight.
Yes, he is on assignment. He is currently being assigned an award.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, you said he's on assignment. I just felt that it was, why people should understand why he's not with us tonight. And he sent us over that he's being honored at the SHM Help Movement annual reception at Knowlton Mansion in Philadelphia, and he's being honored for his commitment to recovery.
Good on.
So commitment to recovery award, Chris Therien. So kudos to the big fella.
We love Bundy. He's a great guy. That Knowlton Mansion, by the way, I had a friend, an old coworker who got married there. Incredible. Place is nuts. Have you ever been there?
No. Maybe.
Cheap plug here. They don't sponsor the show, but they should for wedding season during the summer. But place is awesome. It's a great venue. The food was fantastic. The drinks were sensational. Great place. Great place. So if you're out there and you're in the market right now to get married like Anthony is, Knowlton Manor, they were great.
Yeah.
Really. No, it was Knowlton Mansion. I think you said Manor, but it's Mansion. Maybe you said Mansion. I don't know. One or the other, but it's mansion. It's definitely, it is the mansion. It's not a small house. Listen, we have to tell people, we almost didn't do a show today. We have been very caught up in the trial in New York, and we decided that we were going to we thought about driving up to Manhattan to do the show from outside. Now, as many of you know, we're not a political podcast. We're not a political leaning podcast. So we would just sit there and report the news as we saw it. But I'm just kidding. I'm glad that we did this. I will tell you, I can't show this to you because I can't get my leg that high. I played in a parent versus player game this evening for my son's soccer team. And there was an older kid, probably like high school age, on the other team to try to help balance things out. And this kid went for a ball, and he slid in, studs up. And I wasn't wearing shin guards because why would I? And my whole shin is just 3 or 4 lines of blood from where the cleat got me. And you know what, Ant? I played through it, and I scored the game-winning goal. So everybody just be happy.
Wait a second.
That's right.
Are you boasting about scoring the game-winning goal on a bunch of 10-year-olds?
9-year-olds. Yes, I am. My son turns 9 on Saturday. And you know what? Crushed his soul, crushed his spirit. He's playing travel in the fall, so he's going to just have to get used to it. That's what it's all about. Now, in fairness, those 9-year-olds aren't that much shorter than me. So let's not make it sound like they're victims here, all right? They were victimized by my incredible foot skills, but they are not. I didn't beat up on 6-year-olds, all right? I just laid the smackdown on some 9-year-olds. It's totally fine.
I'm having the intern cut just that little clip, and that's all we're putting out. Just you bragging about bleeding and scoring a game-winning goal on 9-year-olds.
That's what I'm here for. All right, so I saw something in the comments, and I didn't know how I was going to bring this up, and I'm not going to cry, but you know what I'm about to bring up.
I do.
And you do, and if you look in the comments, you'll see why, because I shared something with you not that long ago. I'm going to bring this up. This is actually a heartfelt moment. I'm not being an asshole. This is a genuine thing.
Oh.
So Josh, who is a big fan of the show, is a former student of mine. And he says here, best surprise for my second day in remission. Hey, everyone. Josh is a great kid. I'm going to cry, and I didn't mean to. Josh is a great kid, great family. Josh told me a week or so ago that he had been diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma, and that's awesome to hear that he's in remission. That's awesome.
Yes, it is.
That's really great stuff. You have these moments. This is my last thing before I become a total mess, and I hand this over to you for a little bit.
Yeah.
You go through these moments, especially when you're a teacher. There are moments where you have a student who goes through something awful. Unfortunately, some of the real standout moments that you remember are horrible things that happen. A student loses a parent, you go to the funeral to try to support them, and you go through a lot of these things, and you often wonder why things happen the way that they do. You often wonder why people are put through these horrible things and these horrible tests. And his entire family, they uprooted their lives from Phoenixville down to Florida to be there to support him. And that's awesome. That really, congratulations, Josh. That's fantastic. Working on something for you, just so you know, working on it. And everybody should give props to Josh and his family. Great family. That's awesome. Really, really great stuff. So
you did good, Russell. You held it together.
I will cry after the show. But great stuff. That's really, really awesome stuff. So
it's great
stick
news.
taps.
It's
stick
great
taps
news.
to,
It's great news,
Josh.
It's great news for you, Josh. And I hope you don't take this the wrong way when I say that I hope that Russ is just as emotional when he is officiating the wedding.
I will not be this emotional. Actually, you know what? I might be. I might be. So we'll throw up the positive notes here, the positive vibes to Josh. But that is really great.
Yeah, and that's great news.
Awesome stuff. Truly, truly awesome stuff. So very cool. Very, very cool. That's great stuff. And how many times have we gone through stuff on this show where somebody says, hey, going through a really hard time.
Yeah.
And you know, we maybe have narcissistic tendencies ourselves, right? We love the dopamine rush or whatever of seeing a like on a tweet or getting a 5-star review. But it's stuff like that. And he sent a really nice DM the other day, just about like how nice it's been to, I guess, kind of stay connected and how enjoyable it's been and how much he's enjoyed having us around to do these shows, to bring a little bit of levity, to bring some joy, perhaps, Tuesdays. And so it's awesome stuff. Really, really great. That makes my heart full. So
as it should.
That's great stuff.
As it should.
All right. So, all right, cool. Feeling good. All right, we'll bring it back to the Flyers.
Yes. Yeah.
Get it back here. So
I know people are a little surprised that we're having an episode kind of thrown together last minute, and it really wasn't thrown together last minute. Well, it was thrown together last minute physically, like you didn't put it out till last minute. But we actually discussed this earlier in the week. We knew that we were going to do this tonight, and the question was coming in, like, geez, what are we going to talk about? Like, there's no news, right? No news at this point. There's just been, something that we started last week, and then everybody kind of picked up on was the whole Travis Konechny thing, right? And there have been stories written out the wazoo about it now. But the reality of it is that sometimes there is this quiet before the storm, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that there's going to be stuff that's going to happen as we get closer to the draft. And my thought coming into this, when I said to you, I said, what we should just do, Russ, is we're going to have people that hop on and come on and they want to, hey, it's a Snow the Goalie episode and kind of a surprise one at the end of May. And I thought, why don't we just turn it over to the viewers that are joining us live? And
Gutsy.
Yeah, well, really, let's throw it over to them. Who knows what they want to talk about today?
I see a question. I see a good one.
Let's get the questions.
Okay.
Send them in. And
so you want to do a mailbag. We didn't announce that it's a mailbag, but you want to do something akin to a mailbag. You want to solicit the fine folks on YouTube and Facebook and X. What could possibly go wrong? All right, fine. We'll throw it over to the people. So get your messages in. You don't have to send a super chat if you feel so motivated, so moved by the spirit, by all means. Anthony's electricity bills are going to be higher here in the summer to keep his house cool. He does have a wedding coming up. So, all right, here we go. Kyle Nolan.
I love that Ryan's with us at 3:30 in the morning in Finland.
I know. Ryan's awesome. Ryan's over in Finland, right?
Yeah.
Kyle Nolan checks in, says, while everyone wonders about Mishkov, what other prospects do you believe juniors or the AHL will be on the roster next season?
That's a good question. And I don't necessarily know if it's one that's really answerable right at the moment. And I only say that because I think a lot needs to be seen of what they do this offseason first. Like, let's kind of see what happens, who gets moved off the current roster, who ends up going to who gets a contract, who goes to free agency, whatever. I mean, all that stuff. Like, there's all kinds of different things that are out there with the Flyers. But I think it's a good question to wonder, where exactly the prospects kind of are with this team, and who you absolutely consider your prospect type players. Like, there's some guys who are still considered prospects, but played some.
One that kind of sticks out that you would think is, like, could an Oliver Bonk make an impression in camp?
I don't think he's no.
I'm saying to make an impression in camp. Like, maybe does he? I'm not saying he's gonna make the opening day roster. I'm saying, like, is it possible that he makes an impression and he gets kind of on their radar as somebody who maybe at some point, barring injuries, maybe gets himself a little bit of a look-see. You're not believing in Bonk, is what you're saying.
Well, no, right? So and he's not going to get that. Not yet. I mean, I think he's a year away. So that's the guy. The interesting guys are going to be, if you're looking for a player that turns out to be like this year's Bobby Brink, right? I'm assuming that's what the question kind of is. And I think, does Massimo Rizzo get that opportunity? Right? I mean, that's the guy to me. That does he get that opportunity? And I think that's the one, maybe. But beyond that, probably maybe Emil Andre's ready. That could be. The other guy that Danny keeps talking about is Helge Grans. He's mentioned him several times in conversation. In conversation. So those are guys that maybe finally get an opportunity, but I don't think any of them, unless they surprise like Bobby Brink did last year and like Tyson Forster did last year, I don't think any of them are ready to just jump into the NHL and be immediate contributors. So, but I think it's a really good question. That's to see where they are at, and a lot will be determined by what they do this summer.
Michael London asks where the new SanFilippo shirt is. Might have to work on that one. No promises yet. Yeah. Rob Greeley brings up a name that has an M there instead of an N, but we mentioned this player from Carolina last week. Potentially not, is there a possibility that there's a deal worked out for him? He mentions Farabee here, which is interesting because, as you mentioned last week, one of the guys who could potentially have some sort of trade value, but maybe didn't play himself into a very good position with his coach, is Joel Farabee. Could you see a swap?
I don't know what Carolina's interest would be in Farabee. Their new GM is former Broad Street hockey writer Eric Tulsky.
How about it?
And
that's a pretty cool story.
Pretty cool.
That is a cool story that somebody who wrote for a local site, went through the ranks
now general manager,
and is now has the interim tag, right? They didn't remove the interim tag yet, but is potential. It's pretty cool. That's pretty. So what you're saying is, Anthony SanFilippo could eventually rise to be. You wouldn't be a GM. You'd be like a president. You'd be like a president of hockey ops, right? Bundy.
Yeah.
Well, there's a story about Bundy. Maybe Bundy will tell that story at some point. I don't think he's told it on the show yet. Bundy might have been closer to something like that at some point in his career.
Yeah.
I like the silence that you have on that. That's good. That's good.
So anyway, but no, as far as Natchez is concerned, would the Flyers be interested? I'm sure that they would. And you got to see, does a guy like Farabee interest Carolina, especially with the term that it's got remaining on his contract? Natchez is a restricted free agent, right? So you got to, what would the Flyers be willing to pay him to kind of replace Farabee? I think he made $3 million last year. So he's making less than Farabee was making. So there's a lot of moving parts to it, but I think it's fair. Okay. A little bit. I think that that's a fair kind of thought, because I do think that if the Flyers make a hockey trade, that Joel Farabee's the kind of guy that would go in it.
Okay. Let's go to another one. Andrew Fawcett, is TK worth $9 million plus per year? We had a nice heated debate about this last episode. You brought up the potential of 10 million plus for Travis Konechny. I burped, which some people did not understand. That was me kind of gagging because that's insane. You think it's a perfectly reasonable thing. I still think it's crazy. I don't know if we have to relitigate it because we did quite a long spiel about it last week, including a clip that we put over on the YouTube channel. I think it was like 16 minutes worth of conversation. 9 million per year? Perhaps. So much of it, again, comes down to whether or not you feel like he is a long-term piece playing here. And one thing that we didn't talk about last week that I do think is fair, Ant, that we definitely did not touch on at right wing is if Mishkov comes over, whether it's this year or if it's in a year or 2 years, you're hoping that when he comes over, he's going to display what made him a top 7 pick, a guy who probably would have been the number 2 pick had he not been born in Russia. You would hope that he's going to be playing on your top line. And in that case, then you're talking about Travis Konechny playing the wing on the second line at $9 million. And maybe you're okay with that because Mishkov would be over here on a very affordable deal for a few years. We didn't mention that last week. It is, I think, a valid thing to bring up as a
Well, there's two things here. There's two things here. One, let's just assume let's just say just for kicks, let's say he comes over for this year. I'm not sure at 20 years old if he is a first line player.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I'm not certain he's a first line player at age 20.
I don't think at age 9. Age 19, age 20, probably not.
Right. So that's the thing. So up front, Konechny is going to stay there,
maybe.
Right?
Probably.
But that's assuming. Yeah. Okay. So there's that. The other thing is that one thing we didn't talk about was, what would be the length of the contract, right? So I would say that if you gave him the max length, he might pull his money down just a little bit just to get the extra year or extra 2 years, depending on where their negotiation is, right? If you're looking to go 6 years, 5 years, whatever it is, he's probably going to stick to his guns and want more money. If you're willing to go 7 or 8, which is the max, maybe he brings the number down because now it's more guaranteed money on the back end when he's turning 35, 36 years old. So I think that's the kind of conversation that they'll have leading up to July 1 as they negotiate an extension for Travis Konechny. So is it possible that he comes in at a lower number? Sure, but it needs to be at a longer term. Otherwise, he's going to want a higher number.
Or it doesn't have to happen at all. You could just trade him. Andrew Fawcett over here, makes a point that a lot of people did on last week's episode and then on that separate clip. If Marner and Nylander are getting $10 million, he's worth maybe $8 million. The thing that you always have to keep in mind is when these guys sign these deals. And it's an ever-changing landscape. I know that a lot of people hate when I do this. You certainly hate when I do this. But if you look at the NBA, where players are paid exorbitant amounts of money, they're coming up on a rising cap that could get to a point where a top star could make $70 million in a year. All right. A few years ago, 30 was the most you would see. And even then, there was a time where Kobe at the end of his career was making, I think, around 30. And the thought was he should be able to make 50 because he means so much more to the Lakers and their culture. And he wasn't worth that money given what his level of play was, but it was more of a legacy thing. But the NBA has guys that are making substantially more money. They have guys that are role players who are making more than some of the younger stars in the league. They have guys who are role players right now who make more money than LeBron James did in the first 8 to 10 years of his career. You can't necessarily hold that as the standard bearer because as the cap increases, it's going to change what that baseline is for a star player, and what a decent player is going to get is going to be higher than what a star gets paid now. I do think that the thing that I will still stick to is just because the cap's going to go up doesn't mean you have to be the one to burn that money or to set that precedent. But you have people here saying hey, Joseph says 7 by $6 million. That's not going to happen. No. Micah says 5 years, $7.5 million. That's not going to happen. Those options are long gone. Those potential deals are gone. it's kind of the risk that you run as a GM in this league that, yeah, you could do what they did with Owen Tippett. You could lock up a guy who you hope has 30-plus goal potential but hasn't really done it and hasn't done it consistently. And you hope that you get him on a longer deal because he's young and that the cap hit's going to be low and you look like a genius in year 3, year 4, and beyond. But what you do run the risk of is what happened with Sean Couturier, where it looked like on the surface, hey, long deal, excellent player, sulky contender, eventually sulky winner, suffered some bad injuries, and now that's a horrendous deal. Like that is a contract that is a true albatross. You look at even a Cam Atkinson deal that looked probably pretty decent at the time. He's cooked. And I think that might even be a fair comp here, Ant, that like they're both smaller guys.
Konechny's a much better player than Atkinson.
He's a better player than Atkinson, but they're both small guys. I still don't think that an 8-year deal for Travis Konechny makes any sense in years 6 through 8.
But here's the thing, and you should appreciate this as a small fellow yourself.
Whoa. Watch yourself. Watch yourself.
The game has changed in such a way that the smaller player can play much longer than they used to be able to play. So let's keep that in mind. The game is not nearly as physically demanding on smaller guys as it once was, and that's why players are able to stick around a bit now on the smaller side. So I think that's a thing. I think TK is a better player than Cam Atkinson ever was, even when Cam Atkinson was scoring all those goals with Columbus. TK is a better player, better all-around player, and I think he'll have more staying power than Cam Atkinson did. Of course, an injury can always destroy everything. I mean, you never know, and it's a
sure.
That's a thing, right? But at the same time, I look at I don't think that there's a real comparison between those two, right? I just don't, And Micah, yes, I understand that Atkinson scored 40 goals in a season, which is the next comment down so that everybody can see it. Yes, he scored 40 goals in the season. I know he did. He's not nearly been the consistent player that Travis Konechny has been. Just not. And I'll tell you,
Micah does raise a pretty fair criticism here, a fair point about durability though with Konechny. Like in fairness, this past season, durable. You talked about like the second half of the year, like when he kind of dipped. You said he was playing through an injury.
Yeah,
and that's great, but he wasn't playing at 100% because he was hurt and decently, significantly enough that it genuinely did affect his level of play.
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, but but anybody guys play hurt all the time. Like this is not anything new. This is hockey. This is the NHL, right? Guys play through injuries in the NHL. It's not like the NBA, which you like to always make the comparison to, where they have a hangnail and miss 6 weeks, right? I mean, it's not the same thing. So guys play through injury, and look, he's basically a 70-point player right now on a bad team without help. You start putting more talent on the ice with him, that number can go up. And then if he's more than a point per game player, then he's worth that money for a lot of reasons. Another thing, look at the
there
difference.
Are also, but we always do make the case though that
look at the difference. Look at the difference that he alone made on the penalty kill for this team. Mm-hmm. Wasn't much different on who was playing on the penalty kill from the year prior, as far as being a danger to score a goal every year. The only change there is Travis Konechny. Yes, Couturier came back. I get it. He played a little bit of penalty kill in the first part of the year. They took him off it eventually. But the reality of it is that the penalty kill got good because Travis Konechny was put on to the penalty kill. Let's be real about it. So
that's swell. I don't think that's what he's getting paid for, but that's swell.
But it's part of what he gets paid for.
I'd rather him score goals.
You can't be a one-dimensional player in this sport. No,
you
can't be a one-dimensional player. But then you're not going to make good money if you're going to be a one-dimensional player. You're not going to last long. So,
I was going to start throwing some names at you, but it's not worth it. I think you're crazy, but I respect you. I don't respect your opinion on this because I think you're very wrong, but I still respect you. I have to say that since I'm officiating your wedding.
all right.
I will just go to some numbers really quickly because that's what we do here. We do a little bit of, math and a little bit of evidence-based analysis, if you will. Travis Konechny. Here's his NHL career. I'm going to go year by year. Games played, points. Okay? First year, 70 games played, 28 points. 81 games played, 47 points. 18-19 season, full season played, 82 games, 49 points. The 19-20 season, obviously we know what happened there, 66 games, 61 points. The 2020-21 season, 50 games played, 34 points. 2021, 79 games played, 52 points. This is where we start to see a little bit of that upward trajectory. 2022-23, 60 games played, 61 points. Tied that 19-20 season in only 60 games. And then this past year, 76 games played, although you mentioned hurt,
where's all
68.
The missed time?
Where's
the missed time? He's consistently in the
60 games played. He missed 22 games two seasons ago.
One season. Okay, so he had one injury in his career that kept him out for a long period of time. He is consistently in the lineup. There's no injury history. No real injury history here. Because you just gave the numbers.
Allow me to play this little game with you, though. There are such thing as good point producers on bad teams that don't necessarily become great point producers on better teams. And so what's one of the things that we always come back to during the season, and we talked about this a lot on the Press Row Show, the number one rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, north of the equator. Yeah? I still remember it. We talked a lot about bad teams still have to have guys who score points. And if you're a team that is largely devoid of talent, especially when it comes to scoring, putting the puck in the net, you are going to rack up points. And that is what he did this year, which is great. But I'm not exactly convinced that if you put him on a much better team that he's going to be a 85-point guy or could be a 90-point player. I don't see that in his game. Would you contend that if he played for a better team, a team that were, if he went and played for the Rangers, would he become an 85 or 90-point guy? I don't see it. If he played for Florida, would he be an 85 or 90? I don't see it.
He could be, but it depends on who you can't just make it a blanket statement because it depends on which team you're putting him on. If he's on a better offensive team, but not one that's loaded with offensive talent, like if you put him on Colorado, I don't think he's a 90-point player because those top guys play so much, right? Yeah. If he's in Tampa, he's probably not a 90-point player, or Edmonton, he's probably not a 90-point player. But if you put him on a team that's better than the Flyers with better players, but maybe not the glut of superstars up front, can he be an 85 to 90-point player? I think he can. I don't see it. In this NHL? In today's NHL?
I don't. Okay. Maybe you need to get your lenses checked, fella, if you can see that. Tony Louis says only 15 players in the NHL make $10 million per. Paying Konechny as a top 15 player doesn't make much sense. He's roughly a top 50 player. Where would you say Travis Konechny is in terms of top whatever in the league? Like where would you put him? Would you say he's definitely top 50? Would you say he's top 30? Top 60?
Well, you can't
first
compare,
blush.
First of all, you can't compare forwards to defensemen and forwards to goalies, whatever.
Sure you can.
So I guess I'm going to stick with just forwards, right?
Okay.
So is he a top 30 goal forward? Probably. He's probably right in that conversation. He's probably in that range. Somewhere in there. And the reason, yes, there are only so many players that have a $10 million contract because for 4 years you've had a flat cap. So nobody has been getting the money that they would have otherwise gotten as raises in their salaries over the last 4 years. Very few guys did. And so you're going to see big jumps in contracts. And it's not just going to be a Travis Konechny type player. There's going to be a lot of players that you're going to sit there and go, oh my God, why did that guy get that contract? Oh my God, did you see that contract? There's dollars being thrown around all over the place. And that's just the reality of players haven't been paid for 4 years, and now their agents are going to be like, "You owe us. You owe us. We put money into escrow. To get the league out of, COVID situation, everything else. Fine. You got to pay our players," and that's what ultimately is going to happen. And so you're going to see guys get money that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's going to happen. And Travis Konecny fits into that category. That's all there is to it.
Okay. All right.
Let's get some other questions. But I do have one thing I want to get to about the draft. Just kind of.
Well, let's go to the draft really quick. Go ahead. We'll solicit more questions here, but go ahead.
Yeah, we can solicit more questions. But so the Athletic, their draft gurus, put out their first mock draft. Scott Wheeler, Max Bultman, and Corey Pronman. And they didn't do any trades or anything like that. So this is assume everybody has the picks that they have and selects at the spots that they select. And they have the Flyers with their 12th pick drafting Beckett Seneke from Oshawa, another right winger. And the argument that they make in this, and it's probably right, is that at that point, that's where all the wingers start getting drafted. And so you're basically getting one of the best wingers available if you're picking at 12. And so Seneke kind of fits that role for them there. And then later on in the draft, in the mock draft, at pick 30, they have the Flyers taking E.J. Emery, a right-handed defenseman from the U.S. National Development Program. And so I don't know very much about E.J. Emery. I know a little bit about Seneke. I don't know as much about Emery. Basically, they said, here's another right-handed, big toolsy, right-handed blue liner who could easily have gone earlier in the first round. They did add Jamie Drysdale earlier this year, and obviously you'd love to add a top center, but at this point in the draft, that kind of center isn't available, and Emery can add size and mobility to the blue line pool. Okay. Fine. I just thought it was an interesting thing that those were the two names. The interesting thing about Seneke, which I thought was they took him ahead of both Helenius, who's the Finnish center, who a lot of Konsta Helenius, who a lot of people are saying that the Flyers might be interested in. I've actually heard that they scouted him pretty good as well, and so that there's a name. So they took him ahead of him. Also took him ahead of Tijia Ginla, which was an interesting thing.
Interesting.
He's a guy that's been shooting up draft boards. He's a left winger, which is something that they need a little bit more of. But it's kind of an interesting little way that again, these are 3 draft guys for the Athletic. This is not, NHL scouts that are saying this, right? This is just these guys, sitting around having a fun draft and then writing about it, right? So that's what they're saying. I do know that they like Cole Yzerman too. I just don't think Yzerman makes it to 12, which is why I think that there's a chance that they could jump up a couple spots. We talked about this on a previous episode. I think there's an opportunity for the Flyers to move up, whether it's using that later pick in the first round or using a second rounder, depending on how high up they got to go. So it wouldn't surprise me if they jumped up a couple spots to go get a Cole Yzerman. I think Buffalo also likes Yzerman, and Buffalo picks right in front of him. Okay. So that's an interesting thing. I know Michael London's mentioning Yakimchuk. I think Yakimchuk's going to go early. I do. I think he's going to end up going a little bit earlier than maybe a lot of people do. So probably not really going to be an option. If he falls to 12, holy hell, that's a good pick for them, right? I just don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, I just think it's going to be an interesting thing for the draft. I'm looking forward to the draft. I think Danny's going to be a very active participant at the draft this year.
I think you're probably right. And the one unfortunate thing that I guess I have to admit here is yours truly booked family vacation. And the only week that we were able to get our vacation house was draft week. So when the draft happens, it might just be you and Bundy.
We'll bring intern Andrew on. We'll have him.
There you go. Yeah, I'll take my mic with me just in case.
By the way, someone did ask, and it's probably worth. Go ahead. Talk about it, guys.
So and make sure you make a note to yourself. I know in your age, sometimes you forget things. So this is me reminding you not to forget. every year I've gone on vacation to Outer Banks with our family, something major has happened in the Flyers world. Okay. 2 years ago, Chuck Fletcher decided that it was smart to, there were all the Gaudreau rumors that were going on. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately they chose not to go after Johnny Gaudreau. That all happened while I was at the beach and I didn't have my mic with me. I don't think we did a show. Last year, I don't remember if I think I was here. I think I was here when they drafted Mishkov. So it wasn't that. Something else happened the week that I was out. And now this year is going to be Danny Briere. The Danny Briere of the NHL draft is going to be
You're still getting your residuals on that?
You know, they should have paid me. It is actually a little bit upsetting that I didn't get residuals for them using my voice on very many commercials, by the way. So we will figure out our draft coverage. I'm an idiot, and I looked at you and I was like, yo, Ann, I think this year we could probably do a draft party. I'm very confident that we could go to La Cecilia or we could go to another place and do a nice big draft party, have a lot of people there. And then I looked at the date and I went, oh, no.
Yeah.
Family vacations. That's my fault. That's my fault.
Can't do it.
MS is right. I screwed that up.
Yeah.
It's my fault.
So someone asked, and I missed who it was in the comments. I don't know if you saw it, but someone did ask about the fantasy draft that we took part in.
Oh, boy.
Snow the Goalie for Snyder Hockey. Well, wait.
You people were very, very bullish on it. We need a few things to break our way here, notably the Oilers.
So they've updated. They haven't updated it through yesterday's game. It was from 2 days ago. So this is the most recent updated standings. As of last week, we were 100 points out. And we were down in, I think, out of 19 teams, we were in 14th place. We were not doing well.
Bad.
We've climbed to 8th. Okay, we've had a big flourish by our players, scoring some goals. Connor McDavid getting that game winner in overtime was a help. Bennett had a goal for Florida. That was a help. The Rangers goalies have played really well. That's been a help. We have 7 of our 8 draft picks still alive, which is interesting.
Not
Although
bad.
Rupe Hintz has been hurt, so that's not a great thing. But we are now up to 8th, and we've closed to within 63 points. So we were 100 points back, and we've closed to within 63. So we're at 132. You got to zoom in on that, Russ. I don't think people can really, really read it, but yeah.
Where do you want to go? Do you want to go just to this left column here?
There you go. Snow the Goalie, 132. Right. We were at. Callahan's was actually in first place.
Callahan's was killing it for a long time.
They were at 178 and we were at 78. And
I think they were the wasted guys at the bar.
Yeah, they were.
That were all wearing like suit jackets, and I was like, oh, look at these jackoffs. And then they
were winning.
They've
been passed, but we have been climbing very, very methodically up the list. To now we're into 8th. And we keep going. So
here are the fantasy points, the player fantasy points, just so you can see top performers and who they were drafted by. Yeah.
There's Connor McDavid.
Oh, there he is. Yeah. We were so excited to take Connor McDavid, and then he's been okay.
He's tied for 5th, I think. Tied for 5th in scoring.
Yeah, but
and then I think
the
Rangers goalies are right behind them. Are the next best, our next best team. If you go by team.
Oh, here we go. Here we go, baby.
You can see all how
Snow to well, let me come on. There we go. Uncheck. Yeah. Snow to Goalie, Only Flyers podcast. McDavid is our top. You're right, the Rangers goalie. Obviously Shesterkin. Ben, Kane, Bennett, Hintz. I mean, this is good. I mean, the Brock Nelson pick was the one that I don't want to say that we got. I don't think we got cute there, but we were talking about taking a few different Islanders because we thought, hey, outside chance.
Yeah. Well, he was also our seventh round pick. And actually he was our 6th round pick. I think Evander Kane was our 7th round pick.
He was a late pick.
And then Corey Perry was the last pick of the draft because there was nobody left. And at least he got into a couple games, but he hasn't scored a point yet. So actually he did. He got an assist in the last game. That's the one that's not been updated. He got an assist, I think, for Edmonton yesterday. So he'll get a point. So we'll get another little bit more there. So
Kevin asks a question here. How many games does Fedotov start next season? That's a great question. I love that question.
That's a really good question. And I'm not sure I'm ready to answer it right now with
answer the damn
with
question.
Authority.
Put yourself on the record now, and then you can adjust it again later in the offseason. What is all this fence sitting that's happening with you tonight?
How come
is it because it's late? What's going on with you?
How come it is that I have to give an answer like in 10 words, but you get to go blather on for 6 and 7 minutes?
You're allowed to blather on. I'm saying don't fence sit.
No, so I'm setting up my answer. I'm setting up my answer basically to say I will answer this now, but I am not confident in this answer, and that I will be able to give you a better answer down the line. Okay. But right now I'd say Fedotov is probably going to start 25 games next year for the Flyers. And that doesn't mean I think that Sam Ersson is going to start 57. I do think that there will be a third goalie that plays some games for them next year. So I think Fedotov is probably around 25-ish.
Okay. Do you think Kolosov could get some starts?
He's going to need a little bit more time. I mean, he barely played in the American League. He felt uncomfortable. There's a lot of adapting that has to happen there. I wouldn't be surprised to just see him start the year in the AHL. Is it possible that he comes up at some point? Maybe. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Flyers add another NHL caliber backup goalie in some capacity this summer. Really wouldn't surprise me. Bookmark this one.
I don't like that.
Bookmark that comment.
So you're not a big believer in Cal Peterson.
If he ever plays another game for the Flyers, then they're taking big steps backwards at this point.
Or somebody got arrested. Okay. Is that fair? I think that's fair, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Crimson Cade. Do you think that Mishkov asked for a release around last year's draft, which I guess takes about a year to be completed, leading to SKA's Skaz coach punishing him, sending him off to Sochi again?
I don't know. I mean, there's so many rumors that are out there about what happened with him and his contract situation, involved his dad, and then his dad died, and just weird circumstances around dad's death, and the relationship with the coach, and everything's just just so different in how things are handled in the KHL than they are here. Everything we know about how pro sports operates in North America is so different than what it's done, the way it's done in Russia. Just so different. And so, if I was to give you an answer on that question, it would be purely speculative. And the one thing I've kind of convinced myself to not do is to speculate on anything involving Russian players in Russia and what's going on over there, because we do know that there are geopolitical ties to things with the Russian players as well. And the last thing I want to do is say something that gets
have him get sent to Gulag. Have him sent
the last
military service on beautiful aircraft.
Say something that gets clipped up on this show, and then it gets put out on 6 million different, little sites that say SanFilippo reports this, and then boom, all of a sudden
you're afraid of aggregators.
Well, that becomes a problem for the player. It's not, I don't care about me. Like, it doesn't matter for me. Like, I'm not worried about, my reputation. I'm not worried about that at all.
Alex Ovechkin's fingerprints were all over this. All over this. No?
Yeah, no, I think it's different for these players. You want to make sure that you got to think about
tread lightly.
Their families. Yes,
you tread lightly.
You do.
Rob Greeley asks, Noah Cates, is he a trade chip?
Who wants him? I
John
mean,
Tortorella.
That's the question, and it's not a knock, it's not a negative, but the reality of it is Noah Cates showed this past season that he's not what everyone kind of thought he was the season before. I mean, he had a great year 2 years ago for a really, really bad Flyers team, and he played against top lines, and played well over his head, well over what anybody expected. I even think a few people put him on their Selke votes, like a 5th place vote. He got a few votes, which was odd. And then this season, even though he had an injury at the beginning of the year, he never really became much more than just a guy that played on the 3rd or 4th line for this team. And so the question is that value to anybody? Because right now, if you go off of 23, 24, he just seems like a pretty average player that you see all over the league. If you go off of 22, 23 and go, well, there was something there, and maybe the Flyers just didn't tap into it last year, and you want to take a flyer on the guy, maybe. But I'm not certain that any real contending team would be in the position to do that.
Mark asks over on YouTube, who did the Flyers buy out? Let's start there. Like, do they buy anyone out?
I think Cam Atkinson's.
Okay, so Atkinson.
Cam Atkinson is a possibility. Yeah, it's probable. It's the only one I could think of, though.
Ryan Ellis will go on LTIR.
Yes.
I'm just throwing it out there. Like,
well, I mean, you're
Rasmus
right.
Ristolainen. Maybe he goes on LTIR. Who knows?
I don't think they're buying out Ristolainen. I think you either trade him or you play him. I think that's the situation with him. He's not. You're not buying out that contract. Sorry, it's just too much left. There's 5.1 for 3 years. You're not buying that out. Will you eat some salary maybe in a trade? I could see that happening, but I don't think that they're buying out the contract for nothing. So no, I do think that they can buy out Atkinson. The other one that they may, I don't know what they're going to do with it, is Ryan Johansson. Like, what's that? What is that contract? What is happening there? He says he's not fit to play. I don't know. So, like, does that just go on LTIR because he's hurt forever? Like,
maybe
there's so many things about him. Who knows? There's so many things that I've heard about that guy and what his situation was in Colorado. I don't know. I don't know what that deal is.
The one thing that's actually going to be interesting. That's another one that
could come into play.
I'll be interested to see if Risto's Torontitis gets better this season, or if it kicks in again. You have to be very careful with him. If he finds out that Toronto's interested in trading for him, he might have a stiff back one morning. I guess we'll find out. We'll find out.
You're tough, man. You're tough.
I'm just. Maybe he liked playing in Utah. Maybe if Utah comes to calling, all of a sudden he's feeling better. Who knows? Who's to say? His value, it's funny because we had a moment last season where it was like, well, Risto's actually playing better. He's still not worth the contract. It was a bad contract. But perhaps there are going to be teams that are going to sell themselves on the idea of playoff Risto. It looked like it was trending that way. Toronto has been interested in this guy for 2 years now. Presumably, they'd be interested. Perhaps the player's not interested. I'm just throwing it out. Who's to say? But maybe this is the offseason that the Maple Leafs execute a trade where somebody else decides to. I don't know. Don't know. Fishy over on YouTube asks,
let me throw this.
Ever,
let me just.
What?
Can you hear me before you ask the question?
Yeah.
How many forwards currently do the Flyers have signed beyond the 25-26 season? Do you know the answer to that question?
4.
3.
I was going to say 3, and then I thought that seemed low.
Coots, Tippett, and Farabee.
Well, and if you have your way, it'll be Travis Konechny, and maybe Noah Cates will do something this season to make you want to give him $7 million per. And
yeah, but this is my point. Like, you can't just continually have nobody who's ready to play at the NHL level. All right, I mean you have to have guys that are that transitional veteran type player, and Travis Konechny to me fits that mold. That's why they gave him a letter too. Like, they view him as part of this core for the next several seasons. It's there. It's part of it. Anyway,
Fishy over here seems to think that Torts looks like the soup Nazi. Asks if Torts will ever let Ant have some soup. No soup for you. It's actually pretty good.
That's funny.
Micah London, this isn't a question, but Micah, thank you for letting us know about your diagnosis. MNWS, Mishkov News Withdrawal Syndrome. Very important. Very important stuff. Willie Whitmore, should we assume that Mishkov talks have hit a standstill?
No, you shouldn't assume anything. You shouldn't assume anything. Okay. Seriously. There's just, I have to reiterate again, there is just so much that has to go on behind the scenes with trying to get a player out of a contract in Russia. And it's not just the player. It has to do with family as well. There's a lot that has to go on. And someday we'll probably be able to tell the full story of what's going on. And there's things going on that I don't know about. Like I'm sure there's things going on that the Flyers aren't aware of. Okay. So like that, this is what I'm trying to say. There is a lot happening there. And I still think, and when I say sooner rather than later, I think we'll get an answer here before the draft. Like, I think that we're going to find out in the next few weeks whether or not this guy is coming over. But don't think it has to be announced today or tomorrow or the next day. Like it could take another couple weeks, but you're going to hear something. The Flyers are going to know before they go into the draft whether or not they're going to have Mishkov on the roster this season.
Hunter Mikos asks, will Torts do an interview with Snow the Goalie this offseason, and will he refuse to do it with Ant in the room? I think it's safe to say that if Torts were going to do an interview with anybody on this show, the person he'd be most likely to do the interview with is me.
I disagree on that. I disagree on that.
100%.
I still say it's me. I still say it's me.
Here's the thing. Torts would love doing an interview with me. Fantastic stuff. But here's the problem. We're a team here at Snow the Goalie. You get all three of us or you get none of us. Unless you're Ant and you're a scumbag who pulls a fast one on his colleagues and does a phone interview, and then it still doesn't work out because Torts hates you guts. No, I don't think he'll be on the show. I will say that. I think I said this once before. I don't want John Tortorella to come on the show. I have no interest. Zero. Until there was a pretty famous person who once said in the middle of an AEW ring, the apology needs to be twice as loud as the thing he said in the first place. It ain't happening. Torts is going to, listen, I will say this. If we get some puppies in a room, me and you, get some puppies. We get like a little Jack Russell Terrier. I'm a Chihuahua. We get like a collie. And maybe Torts will show up. Other than that, I don't think it's happening. But you think he would do an interview with you?
I do. I think if the odds were between me, you, and Bundy, if he was going to do a one-on-one, who has the best chance of making that happen? It's me. We'll see.
Here's a name that we didn't mention before. Willie asks about Tamala. Could he have a shot out of camp?
I haven't gotten the sense that they felt that he's consistent enough yet. He had nice stretches, especially earlier in the year in the AHL. But I don't think that he's quite there yet. I think that they still think that he's a little bit away. Again, you never know what can happen in the summer. Like over the summer, guys suddenly get really good sometimes. And you're like, oh my God, where did that come from? Right? Like that was completely unexpected. So it's possible. It's possible. But I would say it's probably more of a long shot at this point.
HC asks, will Ellis be ready for training camp?
That's funny.
Julian on YouTube, did Chuck Fletcher do anything right? The Tippett deal. I think the Tippett deal was all things considered.
I mean, the Giroux trade ended up being a really good trade. I mean, you ended up getting Owen Tippett and a first-round draft pick this year, which they're probably going to use in some capacity to do something else. So, yeah, that was done well.
Josh asks, if Ersson goes down, do we see a Fedotov-Kolosov tandem, or are the Flyers more comfortable having Cal Peterson come up because of his experience?
No, I don't think. I don't. I think they're a way away from Kolosov still. I don't think Peterson is going to be an option. I think he's buried in the AHL, and he's buried there forever, unless they could trade that contract in some way. He'll have to start the year on the roster and be waived, and no one will claim him, and he'll go back to the AHL. So he's going to be an AHL goalie again. Like I said earlier, I think that there's a possibility that they find another NHL caliber goalie to be in the mix here.
CMZ asks, have Tort and Ants reconciled yet?
There's reconciliation means that two people are mad and angry. As far as I'm concerned, there's only one in this situation that's mad or angry. Ain't me.
Why do you think that is?
Why do I think what is?
Not answering your questions.
I got you to ask a question. I was ready. Yes. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So.
Tony Louie, any interest in signing Reinhart and having him play center? I wanted
Not
Reinhart
yet.
when he played for Buffalo. I did.
Not yet. This team's not ready for a big contract.
If Mishkov comes over, play this one out. If Mishkov comes over, and you can get Reinhart.
Who's your D, Russ?
Ryan Ellis and Rasmus Ristolainen on the top pair.
You need
Travis Sanheim.
No.
You
need to develop the defenseman first. You need to, and maybe it's Oliver Bonk. Maybe it ends up being him eventually, but it's not right now. And they're not ready yet.
HC asks, do you think Krug now regrets not waiving his no movement clause?
I don't think there's any. You got to remember that there are reasons guys have them and don't waive them that may have nothing to do with hockey. And
family can be a thing. You have kids. If you have kids, if you have a spouse that doesn't want to make that change.
Yeah, I think
parents are taken care of.
I think those kinds of things come into play, and you're happy making the money that you're making, playing the game that you're playing, and if your family's happier in a certain city, you suck it up and do it for your family.
Hunter asks, is Zayd Wisdom just a feel-good story for the Flyers, and that's it?
Yeah, they haven't gotten a lot of progress with Zayd.
Okay.
I think that's unfortunate. I think that they thought there was going to be more there than there's been.
BJ Beretta asks, which young Flyer is most likely to make the biggest jump? Beezer, Drysdale, Brink, Forrester, other, or none? Ooh, an intriguing final option there.
Well, I think the option, and I don't think it's none. I think it's either. I mean, look, Forrester had a pretty big jump this year, so you hope to see continued growth, right, with him. I think that he's probably the best player of that group. I think that Drysdale, if he can stay healthy, is an intriguing guy to make a bigger jump than what you saw last year. But that's incumbent upon him remaining healthy, right? So that's the thing there. But I think that he has the biggest upside to jump. But I'm not certain that you can rely on that. And by the way, the Rangers-Panthers game's going on, right? Ryan Ingrick just updated us on that. This is a guy who a half hour ago said, "Yeah, it's getting late here. I'm heading to bed."
He's in Finland. He's in Finland. In fairness, he should be asleep.
He stayed with us. He stayed with us at what is it, 4:30 in the morning there now?
I think it is, yeah, over there, yeah.
And he's watching the playoff game, and he's listening to us at 4:30 in the morning. Gotta love it.
I love Andrew calling you out on your hypocrisy. You won't sign Reinhart for a lot of money, but you give a ton to TK. Andrew,
no,
keep
it's
the heat
not
on.
It's not
keep
hypocrisy.
The heat on.
It's not
keep
hypocrisy.
The heat on.
First of all, what's the age difference between the two players? That's number one. And number two, TK is your player. He's your guy. So why are you going to go out and spend more money for a player from another team that has not already here and already in your system that you don't already know everything about? So there's a big difference between the two. That's
don't look, and I'm going to see the reflection in your glasses if you try. What do you think the age difference is between Travis Konechny and Sam Reinhart?
3 years, 2 years, 3 years.
1 year. I think it's 1.5, but it's officially 1 year.
I think
27 versus 28.
I think Reinhart was picked 2 years before Konechny, if I'm not mistaken.
Reinhart was taken in 2014, and Konechny was taken in 2015.
Oh, okay.
So Reinhart, maybe it's just because Reinhart's so good. You think he's more of an established vet? Shane wants to know if we can find some consistency on Erson, Urson, and Erson. No. We're going to have it be ambiguous. We're going to have it be frustrating.
It's Erson.
I call him Erson. Urson. Do I call him Urson? I think I call him Urson most of the time. Jay Toxic has a good question here. Did the sources who told you about the hazing Cutter thing ever talk to you about the Ewan Torts thing?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Did they have much to say?
Yes. I mean, do you want me to dive into it further? I mean,
yes.
There's not a lot I can say there, but without kind of giving stuff away. But we talked about it. Of course, we talked about it.
Okay. Anthony DeMeo brings up Sean Walker. Why not re-sign Sean Walker for 3 years? He fits what you need. And Kyle also asks, are the Flyers considering bringing Walker back?
I don't think that they'll pay him the money that he wants. I think that they had the opportunity to keep him at that contract, and they decided now.
Okay. Let's try to go rapid fire through a few questions here because it's getting late. And the show has gone on far longer than we expected it to, but we always appreciate people who stay up with us here on a late night and send over their questions. Crimson Cade asks, what are you guys thinking of picking up Zegras to play with Mishkov? What a nightmare for goalies, wondering which one's going to try the Michigan. Russell Grabowski.
What a nightmare for Torts. They're trying to figure out which one's going to play defense.
Yeah. Russell Grabowski. Do the Flyers get more or less points next season versus this season? I see a drop due to goaltending.
I think it's, well, again, we don't know what the roster is, but I think it's a good question, and I think it's probably less. I do think that there's a little bit of regression. Yeah, probably.
Mike asks, or mentions, we forget the elephant in the room, making the power play better. Who does it?
You need players. Everyone wants to rip the coach, and it's easy to rip the coach. It's easy to pick on Rocky Thompson because it's Rocky Thompson, right? But yeah, you need the players. If you don't have the players, power play is all about skill, and the Flyers lack it. It's pretty simple, right? I mean, they need better players on the power play. They need better skill players on the power play.
Cody Hetzler says, Vrana, a low risk, right reward option? Question mark?
I mean, I'd have to look. I haven't really thought about it. I haven't heard his name come up. So I would have to kind of look at that. But I mean, yeah, he's an interesting player.
BJ asks, is this your core D in 3 years? If so, how do you feel about it? York, Sanheim, Drysdale, Bonk, Zamula. Do you sign or trade for a true 1D? Chances are all 5 aren't here in 3 years. In 3 years, I would assume York will be here.
In 3 years.
York, you would think York would be. Drysdale will be. I would think that Bonk,
for sure.
Bonk would be. Yeah. Maybe not Zamula. Yeah. Sanheim, I think they will have dealt with.
I don't think Zamula is here. Well, Sanheim would have to waive a no trade clause, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay.
By the way,
I'm noticing,
just so you know the background noise, because Maria has no understanding of the fact that when you're recording that you can't be banging shit around in the other room right next to me, right? But yet she's over there. That's what she's doing, you know. And she's laughing at me right now because she knows I'm talking about her.
Did she just remind you that your office is downstairs?
That's what she said. Yeah, that's what she
said.
Good
on you. I'm gonna shoot Maria a text right now, and I'm gonna tell her good for her and that she is right. Hold on, let me see. I think I have her.
She
number
wasn't
saved
here though. She wasn't home. It was nice and quiet till she walked in.
Boy, you are. I'm not even gonna get to be the officiant of the wedding. She's gonna leave your ass before then.
That's right. There isn't even gonna be a wedding. She's gonna hightail it out of here.
I don't know. I think she's kind of stuck with you now. I feel like there have been a few things now that
people are saying hi to you now in the chat, by the way. So everybody's saying hi. There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Tony Louie asks, will Denver Barkey be a top 9 forward?
If he makes it to the NHL, yeah. I mean, look, he had a nice year. There's no question. I'm not trying to belittle anything that he did in London. He had a really, really nice year. But there's a reason that the guy was drafted where he was drafted, right? I mean, there's a lot that has to happen for him to become an NHL regular, and it's not going to be right away. You know, there's a lot of guys who score a ton of points in junior hockey.
Kevin says she's going to cut her goatee at your ass.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, Hunter brings up that you're going to be in the Chateau Bow Wow.
Chateau Bow Wow.
All right, last question before we head out.
Yep.
I'm going to call this the last one. Mike asks, the ultimate question is, does Torts survive the season if they struggle? And I'm assuming he means if they struggle early in the season. Could this be a Lavi situation? I don't think it's going to be that short of a leash, but if they get 30 games into the season, he loses the locker room and they are just an abysmal team, whether it's because of goaltending or something else. Is there a chance he doesn't survive the season?
There's always a chance. It's hockey. Nobody lasts very long in hockey as a coach. So there's always a chance. I think they would have to have a really, really bad situation develop for him to lose that gig that soon. Is it possible that after the season he's not the coach anymore after next season? I think so. I think that's a possibility. But I think that he's probably gets the year. I think he gets the year with this team and see where they're at.
Okay.
It's easier to fire a coach with only 1 year left than it is to fire him with 2 years left. $8 million is a lot of money. All right, he's making $4 million a year to be the coach of this team. So
perhaps they can say, all right, here's a trade. I have a trade idea, proposal.
I thought that was the last question, but okay. Go ahead.
This will get Matvei Mishkov to North America faster. We meaning the collective Delaware Valley, sends, ready for this?
Go ahead.
In exchange for Matvei Mishkov, number 1 defenseman, Ryan Ellis, Ryan Johansson,
this is what happened,
and John Tortorella to St. Petersburg in exchange for Matvei Mishkov. I think it's a great move.
This is what happens.
Works well for everyone.
Yeah.
Who says no? In fact, who says no? Who says niet? All right, see that? All right, I think it's time to wrap up. It's been a long show. A big thank you to everybody who joined us live. And I'm going to do this thing that I've been doing leading into the summer, but go ahead and plug other things that you're working on because I know that one of them dropped today. So let the people know. What else you got going on here in the off season? It's not really the off season for you. What else is going on in the SanFilippo microphone?
Yeah, it's a good baseball season. So Crossed Up, check it out wherever you get your podcasts. It's also available here on YouTube. We don't do it live, although there's been talk about possibly going live with that soon. But Bob Wankel and I do that. I'll be down at the ballpark tomorrow night. Skipping the game Saturday because we're throwing the graduation party for Amelia because she graduated from University of Delaware last week, which was awesome.
Here's to Amelia. Way to go. Who, by the way, just liked and followed the Facebook page.
Really?
Like legitimately. I got the notification during the show that she followed the show or liked the show. Or
My daughter?
Your daughter.
You know why?
Why?
Because her boyfriend's a big hockey fan. Now, he's from L.A., right? You met him. Remember, he was at the Kings.
He's a King. Yeah, he wore the Kings jersey.
Kings fan, right?
Shame.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they're kind of just hanging out. And she saw the alert come across, and he's watching on Facebook. And so, shout out to Kev. Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in and making Amelia like and subscribe to the show.
That's good stuff. That's what it's all about. Andrew, by the way, asks, is anyone still actually on Facebook? Yes, there are people. That's why we still continue to put the show on Facebook. Although I think a lot of the people, and we've noticed it with the names on YouTube, a lot of the people who used to check in on Facebook a lot have moved over to YouTube.
Which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing. Like we prefer, because YouTube's a little bit more interactive. We could do the polls from time to time. There's all kinds of fun stuff that we can do on that side of things. So,
and you should remind people. You should remind people we do have a best of press row show that was put together by intern Andrew.
Andrew, great guy.
It's full. It's done. It's not like he's still working on it. We've seen it, and he did a really, really good job with it.
Great job.
We're just waiting to put it out when we get to a little bit more of a more downtime of the season.
Yeah, but it is very good. People are going to enjoy it. Job. And Ryan's a great guy. He's a mensch.
And Ryan's asking an important question, Mr. Joy Media.
What's up?
Will intern Andrew, be back next season?
You have to tune in to find out. No, he'll be back. We love intern Andrew. He's a great guy. We're going to figure it out. We're going to figure out next year. I told him, though, it was like one of those really fun conversations at the end of the year. I'm like, look, happy to have you back. But if you get an opportunity to actually go and like do something in this field that you're really proud of, we will happily endorse you.
Yes.
We'd be sad to see you go, but we will happily endorse you. Intern Andrew, hardworking guy, willing to dress up in costume, does the research on the Press Row Show, great at trivia. We love him. We love him. Andrew Jacobson says, I heard he was going to the Other Flyers podcast. Mertitas is trying to poach intern Andrew? That ain't right. That ain't right.
That's right.
Mertitas can't have him. No.
Yeah.
Ryan also trying to get him the producer tag. So you mentioned Joy Media before. I will just tell people on the way out, there's something a-brewing at Joy Media. You can go follow the YouTube channel, Joy Media LLC. It's a great channel where a lot of the shows and such go. But there's something very cool coming that I've been working on for a while. I'm very excited about it. So you're just gonna have to continue to tune in. It's gonna be something. It's gonna be something. If you're happy to put up with me on this show, you're gonna enjoy whatever that other thing is. It's gonna be good.
Imagine putting up with you for 6 years.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Could you have imagined 6 years ago when we started doing the show that you would eventually ask me to officiate your wedding?
No.
Could you have imagined a year ago?
Yes. A year ago, yes. 6 years ago, no.
When was the turning point for you?
I don't know if there was ever really a turning point. I just kind of felt like, you kind of became part of the family. Just kind of like
I beat you down. I emotionally wore you out.
It became like, like that little, like it's the little brother syndrome that you kind of had. And I just kind of like started to feel bad for you. I'm like, all right, let them hang around, let them tag around.
Yeah.
And then it was Maria's wonderful idea to let you officiate the wedding, right?
It was not.
Did she say it was not?
That's what she just said. She said it was not her idea.
Who did she want?
She wanted my dad to do it, but I thought
then
that
your dad should do it. What am I doing?
I said no because I
Hold on a second. Whoa,
I said
we
no.
have a violation.
What's
We have a violation here. Maria wrote me a beautiful handwritten card saying couldn't have picked a better.
She didn't write that card. I wrote the card.
I thought she wrote the card. It was a very nice card.
She bought the card. She
bought the card and you filled it out. I thought that Maria wrote the note in the card. See now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, no.
Well, actually, I don't feel misled now.
It was my suggestion to not use my dad because I wanted my dad to be able to sit with my mom at the wedding. I didn't want my mom to be by herself. So
that's sweet.
Yeah. So now Maria's over here bitching about this. She's like, "Oh, she wouldn't be by herself. She could have been sitting with so and so." So it's like
she really wants you guys to do it.
She's settling for Russ as our officiant.
A lot of people settle for. Listen, a lot of people settle for me. Settling means that you were number 2. And you know what? Number 2 ain't bad, Ant. Number 2 ain't bad. We're the Only Flyers podcast, which makes us number 1. But I don't like how this is going. This just continues to get worse. The more she talks, the worse it gets. I might actually side with you. I might actually get close to side with it. But she makes a great cutlet. Great cutlet. I still rave about the cutlet. All right, it's time for us to go. Everybody have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And again, a massive, massive congratulations again to listener of the show, former student of mine, Josh.
Proud of
2
you,
days in
Josh.
full remission. Way to go, fella. Great stuff. So for Ant, who you can find on Twitter at AntSanPhilly, for Bundy, who's getting awarded an award tonight. Hell of a guy, that Bundy, that Chris Therien. He's over on Twitter at CTherien6. I'm Russ at Joy on Broad. Thanks for listening to, maybe watching, Snow the Goalie, the Only Flyers podcast. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can find us over on YouTube. Make sure if you haven't done so, you like the video, share the video, and subscribe. I have to congratulate and compliment everyone for last episode. We had a lot of likes on that video. I begged and I pleaded, and you did it. So do us a favor. Like this video as well. It helps more Flyers fans find this show. For some reason, the algorithm smiles on it. We don't question the algorithm. We bow to our technological overlords, and we are grateful to the algorithm if they pointed you as a first-time viewer of the show. So for Ant, for Bundy, I'm Russ. Everybody have a great weekend. And as the episode's called, no news is good news? Could be. Could be. Talk soon.